Buckeye Talk with post-game reaction from Ohio State's 41-20 victory over Tulsa. One big change for the Buckeyes today, and Ryan Day had said that he was looking at every possible avenue of changing things on the defense, whether that was personnel on the field, whether that was scheme, or whether that was how they split up the coaching duties, and they did that today. Kerry Coombs, usually down here on the field as a defensive coordinator. It's been where he's been since he took this job at the start of last season. Back up to the booth. Matt Barnes, secondary coach who was in the booth, comes down to the field, and he was the one calling plays for Ohio State's defense today. Doug, just what do you feel like this means for the Ohio State defense going forward? What do you think it means for Kerry Coombs going forward?
Like, to be clear, this is a huge freaking deal because we thought, they flip-flopped their spots, that they wanted Kerry to go to the booth to get a better view of things while he calls the play as the defensive coordinator. They flip-flopped jobs. They decided they want the defensive coordinator on the field calling plays. Kerry Coombs lost his job today. He's now the defensive coordinator because if you're not coordinating anything, that's not your title. He's still on the staff. Matt Barnes has taken Kerry Coombs' job. This is a gigantic deal. Kerry Coombs is back to the thing he was when he left for the NFL. He came back to Ohio State because he got a promotion. His promotion is gone. And Ryan Day, I said, is this permanent? And Ryan Day said, well, we'll have to see. It sure seems like it's permanent. Like, just to be clear, we thought initially, until the postgame, that the big deal was the flip-flop. It is not the flip-flop. It is that Kerry Coombs has been demoted. And Matt Barnes, who when I misspoke about this previously. I was saying there's nobody else on the staff who's called plays. He did call plays at Maryland, at the end at Maryland. That's your defensive coordinator now. The guy who called plays at Maryland for a year or whatever. So, like, again, to be clear, this is huge, and they did change some of what they did. They still gave up a ton of yards, though. This is huge. Like, I've covered Ohio State for 17 years. I've never seen a coordinator lose his job in the middle of the year. Again, to be clear, Kerry Coombs lost his job. He's just a position coach now. And it was a gigantic decision by Ryan Day. And he said, Kerry Coombs, wants what's best for Ohio State. I just want to make sure we all understand what happened.
And it's not even the middle of the year. It's 3 games in. And it goes back to last season. Ryan Day earlier this week was talking about a pattern of problems he saw in the defense, which extends back to last year's national championship game, really even before that. Ohio State still gave up 500 yards today. Now that to Tulsa. Now, some of those were late in the game. Tulsa's coming back from a 21-point deficit. Ohio State's playing back on defense, whatever. But there were definitely big chunks of this game where Ohio State was very vulnerable to the pass, not the run. That had been the problem the first 2 weeks. Today it was what Tulsa was able to do through the air, especially underneath this defense. Ohio State did change some things, played a little bit more two high safeties, played a little bit more zone coverages. But, Stephen, as you watch this play out, do you come out of today with more confidence in this defense going forward and what it can be this season or less?
The exact same because it was Tulsa. I mean, I don't know. Fine, you showed me some new things. That's all I take. I'm confident that they're going to try new things. I'm not confident yet in this defense because they're still playing too many people at the wrong time. Let's preface it with that because it's one thing to rotate guys. It's another thing to have guys on the field and it's 3rd and 7 on a stop that you absolutely need, and you've got the 4th-string linebacker in the game or you've got the 4th-string cornerback in the game or something like that. That's really what the problem is. You can rotate as much as you want, but when it's money time, you need your best players on the field, and they don't always seem to have that the way they're rotating right now.
Well, I think that 4th-string linebacker you're talking about might be one of their 2 best coverage linebackers. I think that's why you're seeing that. I don't necessarily take that much from the depth chart as it applies to the linebackers. I think what was more today for me was about momentum. I thought this defense needed to start to build some momentum. That today was more about how it helps Ohio State win in November than it was how it won today. And yes, they made some changes. Yes, they made some structural adjustments. I don't know if I come out of this game thinking they built any momentum. They still have, I think these next 2 weeks are crucial. This week of practice, the Akron game, and then the week of practice after that leading into Maryland. I think that's actually kind of a lot of time in the life of a team to figure some things out. But it's a pretty critical time because once you start getting into Big Ten play, you get kind of smacked in the face by a different threat.
They gave up 2 long drives to start the game, but they held them to field goals. And then I think they got 6 straight stops, either forced a punt or got a turnover. And it felt like, maybe they are getting some of that momentum. And then they gave up 2 touchdown drives to let Tulsa back in the game. So they did, with those 2 touchdown drives in the second half, it felt like maybe they had a chance to seize something, and they really didn't.
I'll say this, though. From a personnel standpoint, Cam Martinez was great today, and he allows them to move Lathan Ransom if they want to. That's a really a positive because I'm not sure they knew that before this game, that Lathan Ransom's your starting cover safety, and you just have to stick with that. It seemed like maybe a Josh Proctor situation last year where it was Josh Proctor's answer to 2 questions. Now that Cameron Martinez has clearly emerged and played well, not just with the pick 6, but his coverage all day was pretty good. He had 3 pass breakups today. If he can be your cover safety and you can put Lathan Ransom maybe at his more natural position, which is free safety, that helps this defense.
I think from a personnel standpoint, the future is now for Ohio State's defense, for better or for worse. I think that's even going to be like my lead observation. If you're looking Saturday morning, it'll be up, cleveland.com/Buckeye Talk. I'm going to write a little bit about that because you're right. Denzel Burke, Cameron Martinez, Tyleek Williams, JT Tuimoloau. I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody. There were really good defensive performances from freshmen, redshirt freshmen, young guys. We may even see more of Ryan Watts as the season goes along. He was back there in warm-ups as the second-string free safety. So there's opportunity there for young guys to make an impact the way they weren't making one last year or weren't allowed to make one last year. But I think you're going to see just some ups and downs that come along with that. And if it gets 2 down, this offense is kind of showing that it might have enough lapses that hit those both on the wrong day, and you're going to get another loss like they had last week. Get the text, 614-350-3315. We have Intel 7 days a week, and listen to the Buckeye Talk podcast 5 days a week.